Good afternoon, everyone. Kristen, oh, such a nice response. I'm so glad you all came today for this. It's such an important topic, and we are so happy to have Dr. David Ajabadi, who is the guru on brain health, here with us today for this presentation. And you'll have a chance, if you haven't already, to meet some of his friends in the back, well, on the side right now, gentlemen from Think Drink, brain boosting beverages. How's that for a tongue twister? So David's going to talk to us today about the foundations of brain health, and I'm going to pass the mic to him so we can get started. We're going to have a little break in between. If you have to use the men's room, ladies' room, get a little nosh. But are you ready, Dr. David?
I am.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making it. I was almost afraid. I asked her, I said, wait a minute, this is Saturday, right? So that means that everybody should be in the synagogue all day.
We did that this morning.
You did that this morning, okay, so all clear, everybody. I recognize a few faces. I know you, sir. Yes, ma'am, I know, wow. So that means I didn't do too bad a job last time then, so thank you for making it today. Are we doing okay, everybody? Are we doing okay?
Yes.
All right, good. We're going to get into this very soon. I also want to say, I think it's almost a crime to be indoors on a beautiful day like this. Check out the sun. It's really, really nice and warm outside. Anyway, I hope after this meeting, you all take some time to go out before the sun goes down. How are we doing with my voice so far?
Fine.
You hearing me all right?
Yes.
Excellent. If that changes, please let me know, okay? Don't be shy. All right, so as Lauren said, I will be talking about brain health, and this has become a big passion to me. I've been in Baltimore now for about 4 years, going on 5 years next year, and I hope everybody knows that dementia, Baltimore is #1 in the country for dementia. Yay, that's somebody right there.
Get a prize?
Do we get a prize? I'm sure we've had a few. I just don't know who they gave it to. Why? I mean, I have my opinions, but
Listen.
what do you think it is?
I said, go listen.
Who?
Crab cakes, he said.
Crab cakes. I thought you were going to say what do you call that? What do you call that drink again in Baltimore? What's it called? Old Bay. I thought somebody would say Old Bay. I don't know.
Spice, not drink.
Oh. See how ignorant I am. Okay, all right. I better move on to what I actually know. Okay, so this is actually part of us. Wait a minute, what's going on? Okay. All right. This is a slide to expand on what I just said. Most women are unfortunately much more affected by this disease. And for some women it's a shock because all they know are people who take care of their husbands. But that is just not the case. It's worse than breast cancer. In fact, prostate cancer and a few other things. So it's a big problem. It's not just that the disease is affecting women, it's also affecting caregivers. Most of the caregivers are affected. It's a huge burden. This is bigger than anything we've ever had before.
Is that because women live longer?
One of the reasons, but I can tell you, that's a good reason, but there are about 13 other reasons I can tell you why that is so. And maybe one of these days I'll come and do a class specifically on women, why women have it worse than men. But yes, longer life is certainly a factor, but not the only factor. One of the problems I'm seeing, or we're seeing, is like we're just focused on the numbers. But it's more than just the cost, which obviously is significant. But it's also the burden, the emotional and physical toll it places on the caregiver. And many times that's not talked about. Did you know that 42% of caregivers tend to die before their loved one or the patient they're taking care of?
I didn't hear what you said.
About 42%
Of what?
of caregivers.
Caretakers.
Caregivers, the people who take care of their loved one with caregivers. Okay, caretakers, is that what you, okay, so takers. So, and that's because of the toll it takes on the person. I mean, think about it. Grief, loss, guilt sometimes, and all these different emotions happening to someone in their 60s and 70s. So this can really be a very tasking situation on the brain and body of someone who takes care. So it's a big problem, and it's only getting worse. And I hate to start with bad news. I promise you, there's good news coming up, okay? So just hang tight. Don't leave yet, all right? Please. Okay, but if you leave, I don't get paid. Oh, wait. I'm not getting paid anyway. Okay. All right, so I'm particularly concerned about it too. Obviously, it affects women, it affects blacks, and it's growing around the world. I'm from Nigeria, and which is a third world country. It shouldn't be, but it is a third world country. They're projecting that in the next few decades, the majority of cases will be in third world countries. And so, if we don't get it right here, everybody else, we are in deep trouble. Okay, so that's why I'm particularly concerned about getting it right. And from what I've seen, I can tell you this, the majority, over 90% of all cases can be prevented if only people knew what to do. And it all comes back to us. And it's not as difficult as it may sound, or you think. I think part of the problem is on our side, medical professionals. We've made it seem like this disease called Alzheimer's disease is this really big, bad wolf that's just going to huff and puff and blow your house down, no matter what you do. But the truth is, the answers to preventing dementia lie in the things that you do or don't do on a daily basis. And so it's my job to really point these things out to you. And hopefully you may be able to apply a couple of things. This picture I have here, the three categories or the three groups of people that are most likely affected or have the highest risk of dementia. Can you tell me which three they are? From the left. The army. Military veterans, yes. Number two, black people. And then number three, women in general, as we just said. Okay, so this is very, very serious. And because I actually belong to two of these categories, it's very, very personal to me.
You don't belong to the third category.
Just in case people are wondering which categories I'm talking about the fact that I'm a veteran and I'm black. Okay, guys. So I realize that you have to point these things out from time to time, especially in this country. Okay, women. Okay, I'm just going to skip a few things. The one at the very bottom here is that current drugs do not work as well for women as they do for men. Remember, most of the drugs, and this goes way back, this is beginning to change, but way back initially, most of the tests and the studies were done on white men, especially in their 20s and 30s, in the prime of life. Can you imagine that? Most of the drugs were studied on people in the prime. Any pharmacologists here? Pharmacists? There you go, sir. Tell me am I saying the right thing? What do you think? Okay, he's nodding. All right, that's what I heard. That's what I understand. Most drugs are not tested. Yes, ma'am.
Is this information in your book directly the way that it is presented on the screen? Or do you have any flyers or brochures that we can take notes? I'm trying to take notes and it's just going so fast.
Yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of
The
them.
question?
Okay, she said, is this going to be in a book or flyer or handout that you guys can take home? And I hadn't prepared that, so maybe I can work with Lauren to get that for you all. Yes, I do have a lot of slides, and I apologize, I'm moving so quickly. This is part of a series that we're doing. So this is actually the first series. I'll be doing the others in different retirement centers, and eventually we're going to create a course where we'll make available to North Oaks and other centers where you can actually just log in and watch all these videos and get the handouts, get the books, get the flyers and all that. There's only so much we can do in 1 hour or 2 hours. So a lot of it, again, is going to depend on what you can access going forward, or what you can learn about going forward. This in front of you is no longer true. I'm sure everybody here has been told that it is absolutely impossible to treat Alzheimer's disease. There is no such thing as anybody surviving from Alzheimer's disease. But when it starts, get your affairs in order, right? That is no longer true. That is no longer true. There are MDs, medical doctors throughout this country and around the world who are treating successfully people with dementia.
But dementia is not the same as Alzheimer's. Is it?
Alzheimer's disease is a subset of dementia. So in some way it is, and they use that term interchangeably. But yes, it's just like saying a woman is not a person. A woman and a person are basically, a woman is a kind of person, right? It's a gender, it's one of the two genders. So that's the same thing with Alzheimer's disease. There are about over 100 different kinds of dementias. Alzheimer's disease is one of them, albeit a very big part of them, because about 60-70% of all dementias are of the Alzheimer's kind. Okay? So, this is what the Alzheimer's disease brain looks like. It is actually physically shrunken by as much as 30%, 30%. That's a lot of brain tissue lost. So when your loved one or the person you're taking care of is acting funny, they're not just out to get you. They're not trying to be difficult. The brain is actually working against him or her that's causing the trouble. Again, there's a lot that can be done. Now, your job or your mission, I shouldn't say it, but I'll say it. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, and you should, is to prevent the normal from becoming the abnormal. So to prevent from going from right to left. And there's a lot. I can tell you this now because I treat dementia patients and I help people, and having done this, I treat all kinds of brain disorders. And having done this now for over quite a few years, I can tell you for a fact that the power lies in your hands to prevent dementia. It's not, I promise you, it is not the government's responsibility. It's not your loved ones. It's not even God's responsibility. The power lies in your hands, and you can do it. It doesn't matter how old you are, and I can see some of you have had a few years under your belt, and thank God for that. But you still have to do a few things yourself to take care of your health. And my mission in that instance is to help you, provide you with the knowledge and the tools to do just that by giving you clarity, direction, and of course, hope. What I've seen, folks, and I've spoken at some of the most prestigious centers, the country clubs, the really wealthy people, and as well as the projects, speaking to people in the projects as well about dementia. And I can tell you this, the vast majority of people have no clue how to prevent dementia. And that is tragic. Even those who have lost loved ones to dementia. And so we really have to do something about that. And I just, almost in every instance, I see this fear, especially among the women who have lost someone to dementia. It's that fear of losing their marbles, shall we say? And I feel that that's what we must attack and really get done, because that's really, again, it's about the power. So a few things about myself. I have a foundation where we treat brain kids with brain disorders in Nigeria for free. This is our 10th anniversary. We've seen all kinds of cases, everything from cerebral palsy, and because it's a poorer country, a lot of people don't have access to medical care, and so during childbirth, there are a lot of complications that happen. And so we had to figure out how to treat these kids without having access to all the super duper tests that you all take for granted here. You know, the MRI scans, the medical experts, the places like Johns Hopkins, nothing. We're dealing with kids in the remote areas with severe brain conditions. So we had to figure it out, and we did. And as a result, we've had numerous awards from the government, even here as well, because we have been able to show significant results. Now, in the process of us dealing with kids, we started having adults coming to us with strokes and Parkinson's and dementia and other forms of brain disorders. And we were able to pivot and actually begin to figure out how to handle these conditions as well. And I'll say a few more things about that. But we are here to talk about the normal brain and how it functions. So like I said, this is part 1 of a 6-part series. What we want to do is want to help you understand what a normal brain looks and feels like, and what it requires to remain fit and healthy. And I feel like I'm speaking to the choir because a lot of you already know these, maybe either subconsciously or consciously you've been applying some of these things, and I applaud you for that. So I'm hoping I can add a few more tips to your arsenal. But here's a list of the things we're going to do. Basically, it's just going to be 2 parts. Part 1, we'll be describing the brain, what it needs, what it does, and how it is supported. Then part 2, we're going to talk about you specifically, the aging brain, right? Some of the things that are happening, some of the things that probably specifically pertain to the older brain. Someone whose brain is in the 65, 70s age group and above, all right? Because there are specific needs that you must attend to that someone like me, I'm 52, I may not have to worry about those things at this age, but obviously in your 70s and above, you would. So let's talk about what it looks like. If you look at this is the what is this? What is this in front of you? That's heart. Thank you. So if you were to shrink yourself, right, and then you got into your body and you looked at your heart, what would you see? You would see what kind of activity would you be seeing? Pumping. That's right. This was actually meant to be a video, so someone's going to get fired, I think, because we're supposed to make it animated. But so it's pumping blood. That's majority of the heart's function is to pump blood, to receive blood from the lungs, oxygenated blood, pump it out to the body, first to itself, then to the brain, then to the rest of the body, right? And it does that 72 beats a minute, on and on for the rest of your life. That is how we know the heart is working and is doing its work. Now, if you do that with the brain, you probably won't see anything. It'll just seem lifeless. I mean, there'll be blood passing through it, yeah, but you really wouldn't tell what the brain's function is simply by looking at it. If, however, you had the right tools and the right equipment, what you would see would be an explosion of activity. I was at DC for the 4th of July celebrations, and the grand finale, what they call the grand finale of the fireworks, were boom, boom, boom. Impressive, right? This is kind of like what I think about when I think about the brain. The brain is in constant motion, activity, explosive motion. Everything that we're doing now, whether you're sitting, you're thinking, you're listening to me, your brain is super active, forming connections, eradicating other connections, disconnecting. That is how we know the brain is working. So the heart pumps blood, that's simple and straightforward. The brain is forming connections and relinquishing them. That is how the brain does everything you can think of that it's doing. And that point is going to become important. There's another analogy, a volcano. But that's going to become important when we talk about what happens when things like dementia begin to set in. That was a poem. I'm probably not going to read that. Basic facts about the brain. Now, these are some interesting things. It's only about 2% of the body weight, but it accounts for over 20% of the blood flow and the energy and the glucose that is used up by the body. Think about that. I mean, we're talking about competing with muscles, the liver, and everything in the body, but the brain demands so much more. It has about 86 billion neurons, and the number 3 there are the 86 billion, what they call support cells. That's not very important now for this lecture, but they are very important to help support the neurons. The neurons are the basic brain cells. Now, these neurons, as I mentioned, they all connect with one another. There are about, each neuron can connect with about 10,000 to 40,000 different neurons. Again, this is how your brain forms memories. This is how your brain retrieves memories. This is how your brain thinks. It has to form those connections. I don't know who actually took the time to count out how many synapses there are, but I'm just going to take their word for it, okay? Let's see. So what does the brain do? And I'm sorry I'm clicking through these. I really do want to get to the meat of the conversation. The brain does a series of things, but I divided them into 7, beginning with what I would consider the most important, which is the survival functions, right? Everything from heart rate to breathing. It regulates your breathing process. It regulates sleep. It regulates everything that has to do with being a human being, okay? It also deals with sensation. And then at the very bottom, it talks about conscious thoughts, rational thoughts, judgments, impulse control. And of course, it talks about speech, which is what makes us most human. No other animal that we know of can speak, right? I mean, parrots can mimic, but they can't speak. They certainly cannot read or interpret words. So that's the exclusive domain of human beings. And that's why we have the largest brain size on the planet compared to our bodies. So, how does it do all these things? That takes us to basic function. Remember that song? Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC. When you sing, you begin with, oh, I love you people. Yes, exactly. So we are going to be talking about the basics of brain function. This is where it happens, folks. This is where it happens. And without understanding this, everybody wake up now. You got to wake up. Not nudge the person next to you. We've gotten to the meat of the lecture. You're sleeping, or the person next to you is sleeping. Wake him up! Are we all awake? No? The person I was referring to said no, so I guess we are. Okay, so this is where it comes down to. So on the left side, extreme left, is where one brain cell, there's one neuron or one brain cell above and is connecting with another brain cell below. Those bubbles are what are known as neurotransmitters. There has to be an exchange of chemicals from one brain cell to the next for it to perform all the functions we've been talking about. Whether it's breathing, sneezing, whatever, it has to happen that way, okay? And this forms what is known as a network, and that's what the 100 trillion synapses. That's the brain cell, okay? Those networks have to have everything they need. And those needs are about 10. I categorize them into 10. Everything from oxygen to nutrition to fluids. They also need connections, human connections. They also need to be outdoors a lot more than we give them credit, we think about. We need sunlight. We need nature. We need all these different things. We need movements. All of these things, I have this diagram here, all of these things are what make for a healthy brain. Now, some of them obviously are weightier than others. Like for instance, oxygen and water, you're not going to live for long without those. But nevertheless, these are all very important. The brain must have, for it to be healthy and strong, it must be stimulated. It must be challenged. Isolation is not a good thing for the brain. These are all, that's why I love North Oak so much, because they keep you busy. My goodness. They keep you, they even keep the community busy, because I do what Lauren does with the senior aging community, and always inviting people for programs and all that. Super good. Your brain needs that. Your brain needs all these activities, okay? All right, but above everything else, the brain needs energy. As we mentioned before, the brain is only 2% of the body's mass. It demands, everybody say demands. Demands. It demands. Come on, ladies, say it with me. It demands.
It demands.
Thank you. It demands a lot of energy. It requires it. And if you don't give it, it will begin to sputter, it will begin to fail, it will begin to dysfunction. Everything else, everything that the brain does is to ensure that it has energy. And that's the number here. I used to joke that this was the year, this was not the year, or this was the year the world was going to end. But now that we passed that date, I have to come up with something else. But the 2 stands for obviously the percentage of body weight. 20 stands for the percentage of energy it requires, and 25 stands for when the brain is working extra hard. So for the most part, when everything is normal, when even at rest, it requires about 20%. In fact, there are some parts of the brain that are more active and require more energy at rest, when you're sleeping, than when you're awake. Can you believe that? Now, at 25, it's like when you're really, maybe trying to meet a deadline, and you're working really hard, and you're really firing on all cylinders. Now, I have this picture here because when we started treating people with dementia, we just thought we could just do the same thing we were doing with kids. We could just give them nice nutrients and nice medications and they would get better. But we failed over and over and over again initially because we left that very important piece out. And that piece was the energy factor. What kids do not lack is energy. Their brains have a lot of energy. So we did not factor that in when we're treating people with dementia initially. But when we figured it out, when we really figured out that the brain needs energy to do everything, it has to repair itself. So even we were giving them things called nutraceuticals, which are they are supplements. I call them supplements on steroids. They are very, very concentrated nutrients that are specifically designed to fix the brain. But they didn't work until we started giving our patients or our clients the energy their brains needed to recover. It's kind of like, if you think about it this way, we have kids, so again, third world country settings, kids, they are dying of hunger, and then they have maybe pneumonia, and then the doctor comes in and gives them medication for the pneumonia. Many times it doesn't work. But when they give them food first, then they are revived, and then the medications work. So in the similar pattern, we figured out that we had to give the brain. And this is what you must do for yourself. So going forward, and I'm probably going to hammer this over and over again, what causes brain decline over time? Yes, there are all kinds of things, but the number one thing you want to look out for is your energy levels, the brain energy levels. And I'm going to show you a few pictures to point that out. But as you grow older, those energy levels begin to drop. The energy levels in the brain particularly, that's what I'm emphasizing. Of course, everybody's body energy levels drop, but the brain energy levels, that's what you don't want to play with. All right, so I have this here. Yeah, I think we'll make out some handouts so you all can have access to it. So the brain needs energy for structure, function, protection, and defense. And this covers a whole bunch of things. I'm going to skip to a few more things. Interestingly enough, the majority of the energy that your brain requires goes to maintaining that network of synapses. So you're beginning to see why this is so important. Let me tell you, in Alzheimer's disease is primarily a problem of the synapses. It's a problem, the network is collapsing. Those connections are being lost. And when the connections are lost, the brain cells themselves shrivel and die. And that's what causes the brain to shrink. It's primarily a loss of connections. Don't let anybody tell you anything else. Unfortunately, and this is to be regretted, they made Alzheimer's disease into some mysterious disease that has never happened before, and it's so black boxy kind of thing that nobody can ever understand. It is not that difficult to understand. It is primarily a failure, first, of energy. It is an energy failure, and because it's an energy failure, it is now a failure of the brain cells. And eventually those connections are lost. Why do you think that is so? And I'm getting ahead of myself now. Because if the brain is not getting enough to maintain the network, and the network consumes so much energy, what do you think the brain is going to do? Let me give you an example. So were you going to ask me a question?
That was the question I was going to ask, but don't the cells reproduce?
They do, but they need energy to reproduce.
And what causes the loss of connection? Because you're really not describing it enough for me.
Got it. Thank you for pointing that out. I will get there. But what I'm saying at this point is that what causes the loss of connections is that the energy is not enough to maintain the connections. So, okay, I probably should get there. So if the brain is not getting enough energy, it will not be able to maintain the network. And so it's going to shut itself down. I'll give you an example. Those of you who are or who were business owners, some of you still are. If you're not generating enough finances to sustain the sales team, the HR, the whatever, the marketing team and all that, and the private jets, what's the first to go? Private jet, maybe, right? You have to switch to private, you have to switch to first class and then maybe eventually economy. But what the brain does is that it begins to triage, it begins to shut off some of these things that are not, that require all this energy, because it has, what's the brain's primary function? The brain's primary function is to survive. Okay? That's why in Alzheimer's disease, the person doesn't stop breathing all of a sudden. It starts with, I gave you a list of all the things that it does. people's speech starts failing. You start forgetting words first. You start maybe saying the wrong things. Judgment becomes a problem. Sleep becomes a problem, and so on. But I'm going to get to those pictures. I promise you I will. So that's the network. If there's not enough energy, it will not be able to maintain that network. And that's what this battery, I think, implies. So the lower the brain energy, the less, it's actually a medical term that neuroscientists are talking about. They call it network instability. Again, it's because the energy is not enough to maintain that network. I come from a country in Nigeria. No, there is no city in my country where you have 24-hour electricity. None, zero. So everybody has to come up with their own way of supplying their own electricity. But I remember growing up that for weeks, they would ration around the city. So for about 6 hours, one part of the city would get electricity, and another time, so another part of the city would get electricity. That's kind of sort of like what we're talking about now. The brain, if the brain is not getting enough energy, it's going to ration things out. And it's going to prioritize survival. Knowing your spouse's birthday is not that important. I know it is to her. But when it comes to survival, and him, let me not be sexist here. I'll try not to be. But when it comes to survival, what matters is energy for the survival. That's where you see things like senior moments, wires crossing. One of the doctors who now treats dementia patients, her problem, she was about 48 when this first started happening to her. She started noticing that she would go in a group of people, maybe with her friends, having discussions. She would not be able to keep up with the conversation. She couldn't follow what everybody was saying. And then she would be like wondering what's going on. She thought maybe her hearing was off.
Well, hearing loss aggravates that, I'm sure.
Yes, ma'am. Very good point. Hearing loss does, in fact, in some cases, hearing loss can actually initiate it, not just aggravate it. And there are reasons for that. But thank you for that. So, difficult, but it was not hearing loss. In her case, it wasn't, because she had a hearing tested, and it was perfect, 100%. So she had to do a cognitive exam where they tested her brain, and that's when they found out she had early onset dementia. Fortunately, she did not buy into the lie that dementia cannot be reversed. And I'm sorry I'm having to say this. If you are a neurologist here, my apologies. But it is a lie. Dementia can be reversed. Now, they may not say it as a lie, but it's actually possible. And I can tell you there are numerous doctors, MDs in practice who are treating it. Now, they don't treat it the way I treat it because I don't have access to all the things they have access to. But nevertheless, I followed the principle. I had to figure out how to do it in a third world country where we do not have access to all the things they have access to all this. Bottom line, we still get results. But anyway, she figured out how to reverse it in her case, and she did, and now her practice involves treating dementia. Okay? All right, so what we found out is that the parts that are affected in dementia are the parts that, one, have the highest network or synaptic density, or are the parts that have the highest, or they require the most amount of energy. And usually they're the same parts. Memory centers, the prefrontal brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is, like I said, important for judgment, for impulse control, for planning, all the things that make us human. And of course, the speech and hearing centers as well. These are the parts that have very, very high demand for energy, and because they have very high density of network connections. So when the brain begins to lose, begins to fail, it usually fails along that pattern. The most sensitive and the most active parts are the parts that begin to falter, and then it gradually spreads along those lines for the most part. So you can understand, and part of it is that the brain is also part of the problem. If you don't give the brain the energy it requires, it will begin to shut itself down. How do we know how much energy? That's a great question. I've never thought about that. How do we know how much energy is required? That's a great question. So here's the way I would answer that. I answer that by saying, find out some of the things that will help to boost brain energy. That's one of the reasons why I asked Brian and Jeff to come, is because they have an amazing supplement that helps to boost brain energy. It contains something called, what is it called? Creatine. I mean, who has heard of that before? Creatine. Okay. Don't let anybody tell you it's a bad thing. This is something that's been used for decades, especially by the gym bros. But now, we're now in medical science, we're now beginning to see that it's not just for muscle mass, it also helps to generate energy in the brain. Now, that's not the only thing that generates energy in the brain. There are other things as well. But in my experience, I always like to use the simplest, the easiest, and the safest things. All right? Yes, ma'am?
As we age, we tend to shrink.
Yes.
Does the brain
It
shrink?
depends on what part of the body you're talking about shrink. When you say shrink, what do you mean?
Lower in height.
Okay.
I was 5'6", now I'm 5'3".
Okay.
Does the brain also shrink?
It does.
Wonderful.
What is expected is nothing more than 10% by the time you turn 90. How old are you?
87.
Okay. So 10% max is what is expected. Anything above that, we would begin to worry. But nobody's going to measure that. I mean, most people don't measure that. But yes, just to answer your question, the brain does shrink. The brain starts shrinking really from when you're 40s and above. Okay, how does the brain meet its energy? Okay, let's talk about how it meets this energy requirements. Obviously, it's nutrition, right?
The right nutrition.
The right nutrition. Well, anything else is not nutrition, technically. I mean, junk food. Somebody says there's junk and there's food, right? There's no such thing as junk food. So yes, the right nutrition. And the problem with the wrong nutrition, especially things like have a lot of sugar and processed foods, those actually deplete your brain and body of the right nutrition. So, so one of our talks is what to eat, what not to avoid, what not to eat. So what to eat and what, this is really the key, folks. I gotta tell you, this is really the key. Another of my talks, I show a teaspoon of sugar. Did I do this last time? I'm not sure I did.
No.
Okay, so there's a teaspoon of sugar. Just imagine that. Close your eyes and imagine if you want to. That is the amount of sugar your body is comfortable having circulating in it. That's it. A teaspoon of sugar. That's it.
For how long?
Normally. So if you eat, so 2 hours afterwards, it should drive it down to a teaspoon of sugar. Okay? So you could eat a whole bunch of stuff. So like a can of Coke, for instance, is about, 12 teaspoons? How many, do you know how many?
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about, but up to 36 grams for some of the Cokes that are out there.
36 grams, so that's 4 grams make a teaspoon, so that's like 9 teaspoons in a bottle of Coke. Some of our sandwiches have a lot of sugar in it. What I'm trying to say with that example is that those present a load to your brain that is far in excess of what it is comfortable with. And that is part of the problem that it seems counterintuitive, but when you give the brain too much sugar or too much glucose, it ends up being the complete opposite. it destroys its ability to create energy. It actually loses energy when you give too much of sugar and glucose. That's why we have to look to other sources, like creatine that I just mentioned. Okay, so we got to avoid. So I talk about some of the non-negotiables. There are about 7 minerals and vitamins that I always recommend. And of course, you have to consider the macros. Folks, when you turn 50, especially 50 and above, you actually need more protein. And now neuroscientists are saying you actually need probably, I want to be careful here, but proteins and healthy fats are most accessible through animal meats. And it is far more difficult unless you are extremely disciplined, which I am not in that sense. It is far more difficult to get the protein your body requires from plants alone. As a matter of fact, it's far more difficult to get the proteins and the fats your brain requires from plants alone. I know that's an uncomfortable truth, but it is a truth nevertheless. There are now studies from Harvard that are proving that. I actually know one man who runs a home. He's a retired Air Force general. He's retired, so he runs a home where the government pays him to take care of people with dementia. And he found out about this, about the importance of providing proteins and healthy fats. And so he just banned all the sweets. He banned all the processed foods. No snacks, nothing. The kids thought he was trying to kill their parents. I was trying to commit murder. And he started ordering. He had a chef move in, and strictly steaks. Medium well, or medium rare, I don't know. But anyway, he started doing that, and he started seeing amazing recoveries. Trust me, if somebody had told me this 5 to 10 years ago, I would not have believed him either. So I mean, if you're looking at me, buddy, I get it. But in the final analysis, your brain needs to be nourished. That is what I'm trying to pass across. Your brain needs food. Anybody with dementia and is acting up. I know a patient who is being very aggressive. All those behaviors are a cry for help by the brain. Your brain or their brain is crying for help. And that help is in the form of the right nutrients.
How about sleeping a lot? Is that caused by lack of nutrition?
It could be caused by different things. There could be a disease process going on. Sleeping too requires energy. For you to fall asleep, you need energy to shut off the active centers and to elevate the sleep portions of the brain. So it could be that. But yes, sleep requires energy. It requires more energy to fall asleep. So let's just say a few more things because we're going to go on a break now. Your brain, like we talked about energy being the number one thing, right? But the brain also has a slew of other things that it requires for support. So the brain cells themselves have what are known as glial cells, and they are important for nutrition and protection and so on and so forth. We're not going to go into that. The systems, this is another very important thing that I see that is being left off by the traditional neurologists and neuroscientists and psychiatrists. Yes, psychiatrists as well, when they're treating patients, because they tend to look at the brain in isolation, and they tend to treat the brain in isolation, forgetting the fact that the brain is extremely reliant on other parts of the body, including the cardiovascular system, the hormonal system, or the endocrine system. One of the reasons why women tend to have higher rates of dementia, So I'm looking at the endocrine system now, that's number 3. One of the reasons why women tend to have higher rates of dementia than men is because of that significant drop in estrogen that happens at the point of menopause. Estrogen is one of the great protectors of the brain. It also is super important for the production of energy in the brain cells. So when women lose their, in some women it really crashes in some women, and others not so much. Now, that is one of the reasons, because they now have their brains, the way your brains may have been used to a certain level of energy of estrogen for a while, and all of a sudden, boom, it drops. For some people, it's distressing. And it's not just, I mean, people feel the hot flashes and the other symptoms, but the main problem is in the brain. And they may never recover to that full function after a while. So that's why, in my opinion, it's very important. So when I treat women, I pay special attention to their hormones and make sure their hormones are optimized. Yes, ma'am?
What if you can't take estrogen because of heart disease?
Heart disease. So that is an erroneous belief. I thought you were going to say cancer, but heart disease, they are now finding out that estrogen is important for heart health as well. So there was a study done maybe 20 years ago, the women's WHI, the Women's Health Studies, and they came up saying that, oh, it's bad for you, it's going to cause heart disease. They have reversed on that now. As a matter of fact, the FDA commissioner, he has a book out talking about how women have been given the short end of the stick. I just don't know. I mean, there's another word I would love to use, but I can't really use right now. But I thought okay. But you all have been given the short end of the stick, where this whole idea of hormones, they are reversing a lot of those beliefs. So hormones are very important. You just need the right kind of doctor to help you guide you through the process. But yes, estrogen is very important for hearts and cardiovascular health. As a matter of fact, specifically, they found that estrogen helps to make the blood vessels more pliable and less hard. You know what atherosclerosis is, right? Hardening of the arteries. Estrogen helps to reverse that. Okay, immune system, very important. Number 5, the guts. Super important. And again, we tend to overlook the guts. There are certain bacteria in the gut that are very beneficial for the brain. Another thing, number 6, another thing that we have found shocking. I mean, I never knew this in medical school. I just started learning this like 2 or 3 years ago, to my shame. And that's about the importance of muscles. So muscle mass, maintaining strong muscles. And I'm not talking about the Arnold Schwarzenegger kind. I'm talking about where you keep your muscles active. And for you ladies, I'm more interested in your leg muscles, because you all have a higher risk of, I'm speaking specifically about white women now. Black women don't have that problem as much. But white women tend to have much higher risk of hip fractures. And as you know, when that happens,
You're in big trouble.
I thought you were asleep.
He's using all his energy to sleep.
Yes. Playing possum there, huh? Okay. When that fracture happens, the numbers are not good. It's a simple fall can actually stir up dementia and trigger dementia in some cases. In other people, 30% of them will not leave the hospital, and 30% may die within a year of just a hip fracture. Anyway, there's a lot that goes into it, but I'm not going to get too much into it because our time is almost gone. I have to get into what you all need to be doing. All right. So I mentioned that. I mean, it makes sense, right? That blood flow is important to the brain. So a healthy cardiovascular system means a healthy brain. How else is your brain going to get the nutrients? The only way it's going to get the nutrients it needs is through the blood flow, right? Well, you have to eat it first, then it digests it, then it gets into the blood, and the blood has to take it to the brain. So if the blood vessels are all blocked, are not functioning like they should, well, your brain is not going to get the nutrients it needs. So it's very important. As a matter of fact, the numbers tell us that over 80%, 80% of all dementias have a significant cardiovascular involvement. In other words, there's something wrong with the blood, something wrong with the blood flow. So this is another reason to make sure you take your medications, make sure your blood pressure is normal, make sure your blood sugar is normal, because those are the top two things that affect blood flow. And as you can see from these pictures, that's that one. So that shows plaque buildup, extreme left. No, yeah, extreme left, plaque buildup, extreme left. A whole bunch of things can cause that. All right, let's talk about the endocrine system. I think we already talked about that. The immune system, very important, because your brain has to be protected. But sometimes the immune system in your brain can get triggered, and as you grow older, it does tend to happen. So it's the immune cells can turn on the brain and cause problems. I just have these pictures here. Don't worry about them. I apologize for just clicking through. Another thing that we want to talk about is detoxification. As we grow older, we tend to accumulate toxins. Okay, so I think we've come to the end here. I was going to get to part. Yeah, so when we come back, if you need to stretch your legs, get some water, get a drink, please come back, please. We'll give about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll talk specifically about what you need to do as a senior. So hopefully we'll lay out like a plan of attack that you can use going forward, some of the things you need to be doing. All right?
How would you say vision affects the situation?
Lack of vision.
Okay, how lack of vision affects the situation?
Being blind or partially blind.
So vision, so if you're blind partially, it means that yet some parts of your brain are not getting the stimulation and the challenge that they need. But the good thing about the brain is that it's very good at adapting to that, and very good at compensating for it. The problem happens is with hearing loss and loss of smell, because those are more connected with brain damage and dementia. But with vision, I haven't seen any connections with dementia that much, quite frankly. But it's important to make sure your hearing is corrected. Yeah. How are you? I remember you. Yeah.
I remember you.
You remember me? We're good. Have you been? Were you in a wheelchair last time? You were. You were. Okay. Okay.
I'd like to get out of it.
What's the wheelchair?
I'm doing all kinds of exercises. And now with supervision.
With what?
With supervision.
Are you doing anything about it?
All day.
So that's a big problem.
Some kind of leg exercise.
Half my day is exercise.
How you did? Boy, they are really terrible. Why did you give me a cup of your day?
That's good. You should make it all of your day.
My memory is not as good as it used to be, but it's still better than this. At 87 years old.
Make a fist.
This one. That's boom.
He can't see what you're doing. He can't see.
Oh, he can't see.
That's why I asked, what is pastor?
This is no break. Right now, this is a break.
Do you lecture on osteoporosis?
I do, yes.
I think we met.
Yeah, I remember you.
time ago.
No, you came, I saw you here.
Not here.
I've met you here, I know you.
This one is-
You don't live here? You and I, okay. So,
I
so-
worked at the Department of Aging in Baltimore County.
Do you really? Okay.
I did.
Okay.
I think I'd have to say that there's the basis. We need to know exactly what vitamins to take, and exact, amounts and whatever, being very specific. And osteoporosis is eating me up. I can fall on fractures, They all seem to be able to do anything bad with me. And I don't know if that's connected to the brain, not sending the right signals.
Yeah.
But here's the piece. I do see somebody for the osteo.
You just see someone for it.
So yes.
But it's just medications they give. Did they talk to you about vitamin K2 at all? So I mean, that's surprising to me. So in Japan, one of the main treatments for osteoporosis is high doses of vitamin K2. Do you know why? Vitamin K2 takes the calcium that is in the blood. So vitamin D absorbs calcium, so it raises calcium levels in the blood. Vitamin K2 takes that calcium and drives it into the bones where it's needed. So honestly, for osteoporosis, for my patients, I would recommend vitamin K2, vitamin D, magnesium. It's not something you can just do like that because someone has to work with you. Maybe that's why you haven't. So you need someone to hold you by the hands and help you
Make a plan.
and make a plan. Yeah, so it's not something you just remember like that. Yeah.
What is K2?
Vitamin K2 is it's one of the vitamins. It's a fat-soluble vitamin that's made by probiotics in the gut, bacteria in the gut. But what it does is that it helps the bones absorb calcium. That's its main
So
function.
if it's leaching, it'll push back.
Yes, it will help protect the
Who
bones.
specializes in this area?
But which bacteria in the gut?
Most doctors don't. I do it. I mean, I help patients with
You
that.
have a card?
I do, I think. I always have to be careful because I don't want to. I mean, I'm here to just give information,
Exactly.
so I'm always real
Somebody's
careful.
asking.
But if someone's asking,
Consult, like to make a point.
I can give you that. I'll grab my card in a minute. Just give me a second. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. You mentioned this to me, so I remember you. Did you really? Yes, sir. The microbiome, right? Yeah. Yes, it's huge. Absolutely huge.
Doctor, I want to correct you.
Sorry?
What the bacteria?
Yeah.
We've told people that they see what. Nothing. Probiotics. You met them, but you don't know them.
I know.
And I'm sure there's nothing. There are other bacteria that you should have.
So what happens as we go older, we lose more diversity, and that affects also
So what bacteria?
It's not just specific bacteria to take. You need like a mix that can provide those bacteria for you. So I mean, there are some places that sell those things. I mean, I can recommend, but you need more make hard. You need more hard. But you got to take fermented foods. So I mean, that's that's all I can tell you at this point. You know, just take recommended foods. Some recommend some probiotics as pills.
Yeah, but that's mostly black people, so.
No, it has a lot of other things as well. It has a lot of other things. I mean, there are brevis, brevis, rhamnosus, beef fragilis. Beef fragilis is very important. A whole bunch of other things. But what you need is like diversity.
She only has 21
Yes,
and we're in the West.
ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If you've reached 85, 7,
Yeah.
and you're not demented,
Yeah.
We don't have 22 yet. Maybe, maybe not.
at that age and not, is it has to
Yes, too.
That's a tough one, man. I mean, the numbers are 1 in 2 will have at that age, but a lot of that is dependent on the lifestyle, what you eat, how you live.
I told you what to do.
What? Yeah, good sex.
When you're young.
I hope you don't mind, I just wanna hear what you guys are saying.
Okay. How old are you? Yeah. Knock on wood.
Oh, I know. I had a brain scan for other reasons.
Okay.
But I asked my doctor, general attorney, if it was telling me anything about my dementia or how my brain's going in that direction. And she said it showed typical.
Okay.
Typical aging.
Typical aging.
What's that?
So the brain scan? So she probably saw that the brain has shrunk compared to 25-year-old. May have some plaques here and there. Maybe the blood vessels may not be as agile and flexible as they should be. There might be some whites. They talk about white matter. Meaning that there's some loss of blood flow onto the brain. Wow. 0 black and correct, right? That's impressive. I gotta say, that's impressive. Yeah, you must be taking good care of yourself. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It made me hypertensive. It made me a little neurotic. Actually, he was a real sociologist.
Oh, he was?
You're a physician? I had 2 brain scans to determine whether I had.
Yeah, this is how juice.
No, that is not bug juice. That's
No, this is,
what I just put over
What, they
here.
find anything?
that's about it.
That's right. Yeah, you all have to be. Don't let them get away so easily. You gotta ask them.
A little
When they
bit
do the
better,
test,
yeah.
Find out what the test is.
They should tell you. Should tell you the results.
You get cookies from you. Try this. You won't like this
Okay, we're ready to start. What I said was that there's a chance, but it's all based on lifestyle, your genetics, how you eat, how you exercise. No, I think you look great. You look great. Although I can't say it. You want to reduce your sugar? Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah.
You know, to me,
Yes, that's a risk factor because it's a risk factor for brain damage. It can cause strokes or minor strokes. I am not affiliated with the hospital. I'm on my own now. Clinic.
Here in the States.
Yeah, in the States, but it's not a licensed practice here. So I don't know how to say it, but I'm practicing in Nigeria. That's my base. However, if people want to practice, they want to consult with me. Give them informed consult. Medical practitioner care. Yeah, you can send it to the US. However, I have patients around the world. One is anyway. I'm sure you do. All right, we got to get started. Okay, we're about to get started.
He's not licensed in the United States. He's not licensed as a medical doctor in the United States. He's not licensed. He has a medical license in Nigeria.
I'll check it out.
David, it's recording, but it did say that your battery's low.
Oh yeah.
So
It was recording while I was talking over there.
it's been recording. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
stop it.
Oh, okay, good.
I just wanted to let you know.
I'm
your battery
I'm
has
glad
it.
it's. Oh, 10%. Oof. Are you using
I am
that?
recording.
Okay,
I'm gonna
great.
restart it.
Okay, great.
When you
Do you have a charger here?
when you send me up there, just hand me the mic. So I don't want to put another one on and
Okay,
have
good.
background.
All right. Okay, let's get started, gentlemen, ladies. Hello. I can just give you this one. Oh, again. Testing.
I don't think a lot of people realize
No,
that you were gonna continue.
Well, I try to tell them though.
No, that's just a bit.
I'll listen,
Okay, thank you.
even though I was asleep.
What is it, Larry?
Barry.
Barry, right, I remember that. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are going to continue. Okay. So someone walked up and asked me, what, if you're 85 and what are the chances of them getting dementia? And it's not an easy question to answer. I mean, the numbers say that by the time you get to be that age, one in two people will have dementia. Well, it doesn't have to be you, and there are a lot of factors that go into that. Everything from your genetics, your childhood.
Genetics I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
How does genetics affect us? My mother had Alzheimer's at the very end of her life.
Uh-huh.
My brother lived to 90 and he had dementia.
Okay, all right. Tell you what, we'll talk about that afterwards, right? So, so different factors. Genetics can play a role, yes, but in my experience, and the studies show that not more than 5 to 10% is actually driven by genetics, especially genetics that have to do with dementia.
Good.
The majority has to do with lifestyle. And that's a very loose term for things for like how well you sleep, how the quality of your food, the stimulation, how challenged your brain was, how much love and affection you enjoy. Huge. I mean, think about studies about bonding and social connection. It's beginning to resurface about how the chemicals that are produced from having great quality relationships can be very protective of the brain. And of course, like we mentioned before, muscle strength and muscular activity. Huge. Again, I mean, I am shocked at what we're finding out about the role that muscles play in health. They're now finding out that when you activate or stress your muscles, again, it's not lifting huge weights, but just stressing the muscles. That activity itself stimulates the release of chemicals from the muscles that get into the bloodstream and activates healing, repair, stimulate connections between the brain cells. And as we said earlier, the most important thing is having the network, having those brain cells connect effectively in the brain. Once that is affected, then the brain begins to falter and stumble. We know the older you get, you're not going to get as much as that, as those connections happening as you were getting when you were 25, for instance. It's not as easy to quickly make connections. You okay with that, Barry?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's not as easy to make connections, but it's still very possible to quickly make and form connections and remove old ones. So here's a timeline that I like to use just to give you an idea of what's going on. So on the left, that's conception. Some say really your life started probably your mother, when your mother was a baby, because that's when the ovaries were first formed. So okay, let's not complicate that. Once you are formed as an embryo, right, at conception to birth, we're going to skip the first few decades, but by 25 is when there's full brain development. That's when the parts of the brain that have to do with judgment, again, we're talking about the prefrontal cortex, the parts that have to do with judgment, planning, complex decision making, and so on. That's when that is formed. Now, when I was saying this, I spoke at this boardroom to this big shot financial planners. And right there in the middle of the conversation, someone stops me and says, well, yeah, that can't be true. I mean, maybe for women it's 25, but for men, they don't get mature until they are 40. And I was like, there's always this smart, there's always a smart aleck in every class I go to. I mean, it's always happens. Someone who just interrupts you for no good reason and just set something off. Anyway, I thanked him for his contribution and I moved on. 40 is when midlife. So midlife is when we begin to see things, kind of begin to, what's the term now, Larry?
Go downhill.
Go downhill. Yeah, I wouldn't say go downhill as much as plateau. You're not bouncing back from all those injuries you used to have in the past, things like that. Then at 50 is menopause. 50 is menopause. This is when the woman loses the hormones that have been very protective of the brain. Loses the levels. So everything from estrogen to progesterone and even testosterone. This is really, can you can't see my cursor. This is really what I feel needs to be paid a lot of attention to. This really is where things need to be taken care of, but unfortunately, only 1 in 5 OBGYNs actually help in this. But it's, in my experience, it's never too late to do something about it. By 80 years of age, 1 in 2 will have it, and by 90 or to 100, you've lost about 10% of your brain's entire mass. The good thing is that the older you get, some of these connections are more solid, they are more effective, you have more maturity and more flexibility in knowing how to use your brain. Here's this picture. So from the left to the right, if you can see it, so the blue line is for men. We don't have that sudden decline, which is the pink line. You see that pink line, so that's what happens with women. So on the top left is 100%. So in your 20s, you had 100% brain energy production. So this whole diagram is basically, I apologize, I should have explained this. This this diagram is talking about how energy declines, brain energy specifically, declines with age. So in your 20s, you've got 100%. When you get to be about 50, especially for women, you can have as much as a 30% drop in energy levels for the brain in certain parts of the brain. Sometimes they never recover from that, and they never get back to what it was before. So you can see 74% and 65%. The green line represents what happens if you have someone who knows what they're doing, who can measure your hormones and make other measurements and advise you correctly, and maybe hold your hand, and then you can see that you can actually go beyond what the men are enjoying and have optimal brain energy production. So that is possible. And I mentioned earlier in the last session that Brian and Jeff are here with one of those products. I've used them myself, and I can tell you it helps. It helps to generate brain energy. So effects of aging, let's talk about what happens to the brain as it ages. I'm just going to say, okay, the quick one about as you grow older, yes, there are some positive effects. You don't have those mood swings that maybe you or your kids or grandkids used to have. As you're older, and you all know what I'm talking about, you're more mature, you learn how to take things in stride, you've had disappointments, you know how to handle disappointments better than probably somebody in their 40s, right?
Patience.
And patience, yes ma'am, absolutely, patience and maturity. Those all come with, I guess the word is wisdom altogether, right? All right, so let's look at the things that happen as you grow older and what to expect. And I'm listing these things out here because I really, really want you to see the risks that you're up against. And of course, again, I feel I'm preaching to the choir, but the point is that for each of these things, there's a lot, and I mean a lot, that can be done. Okay? There's a lot that can be done. I know there's no medication for number one here, which says memory. There's no medication that a doctor can prescribe that I know of that will reverse memory decline. But I can tell you this for a fact: there's a lot you can do to improve your memory. My mother. So a quick story. My mom. My dad was always complaining. She's 78. He's 82. He would tell her things that happened maybe 3 or 4 days ago, or things that happened way back when they were younger, and she couldn't remember it. And it was like, this has happened just 5 days ago. She couldn't remember. And he's very impatient. He was getting really, really frustrated with her. And then, so she was telling me about it. So yeah, I said, okay, fine. I mean, I'm always sending things back home because we have a huge number of kids that we support with brain problems. So I just bought a few things, sent them to her. And then we were talking the other day, and I was asking about her memory issues, and she thought about it for a while, and she's like, you know what? Your dad hasn't complained about this in a while. She didn't realize it, but I mean, he's the one that's been complaining about it. So I called him and I said, what do you think? And he thought about it for a while, and he said, well, in the last 1 year, I haven't noticed it. All right? Now, it worked quickly for her because I know her. She's quote unquote my patient. So I had been doing other things for her. So it may not work you may not know exactly, it may not work as quickly, but what I've found is that when we work with people and just understanding what exactly is going on, you can significantly improve people's memory, especially if it's the kind of memory that is getting in the way of their daily activities. You should not accept that. You should not accept that things that are important to you should be lost and there's nothing you can do about it. Do not buy into that lie. It is a lie. You can improve your memory, and you don't have to do any complex tests and complex activities to do that. Basically, like I said before, it's a cry for help. Your brain is being starved of certain nutrients, which in turn create energy for it. And so if you can provide your brain with the nutrients it needs, it will happen. But it's not just about nutrients. It's also about sleep. What we know is that as you grow older, obviously you don't sleep as well. Sleep is a very complicated process that your brain has to go through, and there are several phases that it has to go through. But again, it needs energy. But there are